everybody. Welcome to our Awabakal episode. Today we are going to talk about Aboriginal women and their roles in our society. And I have two awesome Aboriginal women with me today, Toni Manton and Yeena Thompson. Toni is working with PHN and Yeena with Just Is. They are very, very active in our community and in our healthcare services, and I think it's great to have them along today. So how are we going?
Good, thank you.
As you know, Rodney's not here today, so I'm going to channel a bit of inner Rodney with a bit of his help. This is not my usual gig, but we'll give it a go. So when we talk about women in society and women's business and how much over the years that has changed, so we need to think about the now and the then. I guess as far as our culture goes, what are your thoughts on how our roles have changed, like over the years in society? Not so much back to the days of when we were running around with no clothes on, but like as we've come through our generational change with our parents and our generations.
How it's changed. We're both looking at each other because it's a very interesting question.
It's a good question because it has changed a lot. And I guess our role as women in society is probably more prominent than it was back then.
I think you've got to really remember that Aboriginal women traditionally they were also knowledge holders, and they were also people that make decisions as well. I think society has probably taken that away from us a little bit.
Yeah.
Would you say, Yeena?
Yeah, definitely. I think there's more Aboriginal women coming to the forefront and standing up and fighting for the things that we believe in as a nation, as a First Peoples. But I think there were back in the day there was still a lot of women who were. I don't think that our roles have really changed because we've always been either behind the scenes or out front. But I think for us now, we need to be the part of society that brings our communities back together, because we've been so pulled apart from Western society and the values and all those sorts of things of Western society that has creeped in and really infected who blackfellas are, and we need to come back to law and people, and we need to share all that with each other. If people know something, then we need to share it. If there's,
Traditionally in society, we definitely had that. We had our place. We were the teachers, and we were involved in those decision-making processes. And even now, when I think about the start of Awabakal and some of our organisations that have that we own in Newcastle, that the community organisations are supported by women, most of them have had women involved in their origin, in their foundations
they
as
have.
well. Yeah,
and I think a lot of our Aboriginal women have forgotten that our Aboriginal women are instrumental in this stuff. Although men had the voice and they stood up and they spoke, it was the women that were at home looking after the children, that kept the family together,
or having those informal groups at their houses, inviting the other wives over to, start up those groups, especially here in Newcastle, so I think that it's worth us trying to do some of that informal stuff again. I've been talking to Toni. I really just want to put a post on Facebook and go, hey everyone, just want to let you know I'm going to Jesmond Park and I'm going to have a couple of trays of sausages. Please bring your kids over, come over, have a yarn. And who's out there, like who just wants to meet up and get,
And I guess when I think about our organisations today, again, women have a very large presence in our staffing. We've got some women CEOs in some quite prominent local organisations. And I guess the irony of looking at this is, like, we've always looked at our men in our society as the leaders, but the women are actually the ones who've been pushing them forward for a long time.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Do you think
And
that's changed over time?
Has it changed over time that we're pushing our men forward?
Well, in my
You have to-
family,
you
it
go-
is. In my family, it is. Like my husband isn't as active as he used to be in community. Not that people don't know him, but he's taken a bit of a step backwards because, you know, I've been accepted in the Newcastle community, which I absolutely have full respect for people who do that for me, you know, and yeah, so he's my backstopper. I know I can get out there and have my say on stuff, and he's got my back. So
And
yeah,
supporting that.
yeah.
We've been through a lot as women through time. Like when you think back to the changes for our mothers, and we're a product of them, and learning some of the things that they experienced. How do you think it is for kids today? Like with the challenges they have, we had our generation and we had our former generations who went out and worked for very little money. Some couldn't get a job, couldn't use the hospitals, couldn't use the birthing suites, couldn't use the medical centres. Reason we have all these things today that are Aboriginal and community run and owned. But what about girls today in their efforts, like to go out and have a voice about what they want in society and who they want to be? Do you think the opportunities are there for them
To talk up.
to speak up and be those representatives?
I think there needs to be more opportunities created for our younger women to get up and talk, most definitely. And we have to create that. We as a, I'm not going to say elder, but we as older
We're all
women...
getting close there.
Yeah, no, not yet. I'm not yet. I'm not wise enough yet. But I think we as older women need to create those spaces for our younger women to up and coming. Do you know, Simone, we have a younger population here in Newcastle.
Yep. A lot of women in it.
We're 50% of the Indigenous population, women are, and about 4% of that population is women 25 and under. Yeah, so we have to look at creating those opportunities for our young girls.
I think more leadership opportunities, definitely. I mean, there are, you know, obviously nationally and probably statewide, there's leadership opportunities, but, you know, having local ones, having local leadership opportunities, to inviting young people to get together, young women to get together from different schools, you know, and bringing all showcasing. Even, I know this is popping in my head, you know, showcasing the dances that they're learning at their schools, you know, and that sort of stuff. And so making it a celebration, as well as giving them topics that they might want to talk on. You know, what do you think about sovereignty? What do you think about deaths in custody? You know, things that are real life to us. What do you think about youth suicide? You know, our kids need to be able to have a voice about that.
Absolutely.
Because we, as older people in the community, can't change none of that stuff if we're not listening to the people that it's affecting. And that's, you know, yeah.
And they have, and you know what? Our younger people have the solutions. We've just got to listen.
Yeah, we've got to get them to the table, don't we? It's certainly, I know there's a few younger ones that are really stepping up to have a bit of a voice. Taylor Gray over at the Union, and there's a lot of girls involved in domestic violence and raising awareness around that sort of stuff. And I guess they're not issues just faced by our women, but they seem really prevalent in our society. And that's due, you know, to the different traumas suffered by us as a people, not just our women, but our men. And the consequences of those, I guess, come out in some of that stuff. But if you look at women in time, or women in our time, is there anyone that really stands out to you as a role model that you admired growing up, or is there someone locally that you would like to talk about?
Oh, dearie me, there's so many women that have actually touched, inspired me throughout my working career. My mother is Polish, so I suppose the woman that had a really massive impact on me was my grandmother, because Second World War, she come over here. My grandfather was unwell from that war, so she was the one that worked.
I
She's the
almost
one that
had that
worked.
same experience with my grandparents.
Yep,
Yeah.
she's the one that worked. And then I meet, women through my lives like Inez Carter, who was a massive influence on me. Tracy Curry, who was a former CEO of Awabakal, who played a huge role in some of the things that I still think about today. But sister girl sitting beside me, my best mate, my partner in crime, my 5/8, gee whiz, could we tell you some stories about stuff that we've done?
Not on this one.
Yeah, definitely not on this one. But
We'll save that for the bar.
I think the inspiration that I've and our friendship, we've been through a lot together and we've had some good times, but watching Yeena go through cancer a few years ago and having those conversations with doctors, and I was thinking about that this morning, and there was a point because I knew you'd ask me this question, so there was a point there that we got some really bad news, and it still makes me tear up thinking about it because, yeah, I couldn't bear losing my best friend. Like, she's not my blood sister, but she's my sister.
Yep.
And I couldn't think of ever not being on this earth without her being here. So,
and that's part of the reason we get through our lives, because we have those kind of friends and supports. And I guess Indigenous women and Aboriginal women in general do stick together and support each other so much because of some of the adversity that we face. And I'll bring that question back to you too, Yeena, but I also want to acknowledge your fight with that. I know you've talked about that with us before to raise awareness as far as health goes, but as someone who's known you for a long time and not just been your friend but watched you work in community and every opportunity you've had to raise awareness about anything that can help someone else, you've done it. You've done it with breast cancer, you've done it with COVID, you've been out there working with the disability sector, domestic violence. There's not much that all of us, I suppose, in this room haven't touched on, but the networks that we have and the ongoing stuff that you share inspires someone else and also educates someone else on the options available. So, but I am going to bring that question back and ask about who you've admired. And then I'm going to share something.
Yeah. So look, I think one of my biggest inspiration was my mother. I'm going to breathe through a lot of this. There's things that I learn about her. Sorry.
no, don't
Just
be.
breathe.
This is why we have these conversations. They're allowed to be raw, and what you're sharing is really personal but very, very precious. So you just take your time.
She was a woman that I didn't get to have a long time with. Sorry.
That's all right, darling.
And I learned new things about her, even after she's been gone for 34 years, you know what I mean? Like, just things that I didn't know, like even her having a diploma in commerce, like back in 1967, she grew up in an orphanage, when her family were 2 hours away from her. But she also went to Sydney and she was instrumental in every Aboriginal organisation that we have in this country today. And I guess that's where I've always had my passion, where I got it from. It's from her, we're involved in, the 10 Embassy and, my mother was wearing a Springboks jacket in Jersey in 1971 when de Klerk said black people will not wear a Springboks jersey. And she was fully pregnant with me, alongside with her brother and Gary Foley. So, Aboriginal rights and fairness for our people has been something it was just in my blood. I was born with that. And, the women that I meet along the way, there were teachers as well, some of my school teachers were absolutely amazing with me. and my aunties and what their struggles were, you know, after Mum passed, and I had to go and live with my grandparents, and seeing my aunties and the things that they, you know, went through. And it was like that. I was like, I love them for that, and I will take their experience as my experience and not do what they, like, not have to put myself through the things that they went through if I could avoid it. And I was lucky enough to be able to do that. But, you know, Toni, since I come to Newcastle, like, Tony's taught me so much about mental health. I was just a country bumpkin.
It's a bit of a concept. She likes that
I
subject.
know, she likes that stuff.
Yep.
But, you know, I was a country bumpkin, come from Moree, and we just said, hey, everyone's Wamba, you know. And we didn't really realise that there was, like, I didn't realise that there was a more in-depth thing to mental health.
Yeah.
And over the years, I think Tony's definitely given me good training and lessons about how to help people rather than just be real rough with them.
We've switched roles now, though, haven't we?
Yeah, and I think there's...
Yeah, and as a patient one, I'm the more like, yeah.
And there's lots of women who are doing culture and language, you know. I want to give a shout out to Gwenda Stanley, you know, like Gwenda's a Gomeroi woman, and she's been dancing for so many years. And you know, the last thing I had a yarn to her the other day, and I said, you got to teach me how to dance. I'm sick of not being able to do this Brolga dance properly, you know. And yeah, so there's many women, and I try to, like, get good stuff from all women that I meet.
And there's local women that are still practicing their culture.
It's
They're
awesome.
still there.
It is, isn't it? And we do, even though we don't.
Cheryl and Beryl. Russell?
Oh, that's who I was talking about.
Sorry,
I can't believe that you didn't even think about them girls.
I never do.
They'd be like, oh my goodness.
Yeah, so yeah.
Yeah, I agree. I think we're really lucky to have such a bank of knowledge, like, within our local community and our families, and we need to cherish that. And I also feel that the more we share that, because we all come from different places too, there's different practices, the more we share that, the more understanding there is, so we don't look so womba to each other when certain things happen and those sort of stuff.
And you don't have to hold, like, influential positions in community to be noticed. There are women at home raising their babies.
No.
That we should be celebrating.
When you just told your story about your Polish grandmother, I had a German grandmother on my mother's side, and same. My grandfather had a breakdown, and she had 3 children on her own in 1948, 50, so same thing. And we in our society forget the challenges that those women that come before us had, particularly our Indigenous women and our Indigenous ancestors.
I just think of the stories about my dad's mother over at Platt's estate. Dad telling me stories about her making sure that, you know, the kids were clean.
The cleanest dirt floors in the world.
Oh, yeah, they sweep those dirt floors over there. But she lived over there with... Yeah, after my grandfather died, after Dad's dad died. And she raised 3 kids over there, you know, and did it hard and kept them clean so that welfare wouldn't come and take them. And Dad spoke to me about living in a humpy over where the university is at. He spoke to me about all this stuff. Like, it's, you know, the history's there.
They certainly faced some challenges, didn't they? And made our
absolutely.
lives a little bit easier because of some of those challenges. So we've covered a few things. There's a couple of other things I'm just going to touch on. One is about challenges that I'll just lead into that from that. What is probably the hardest challenge that you faced as an Aboriginal woman?
Oh, being taken seriously.
I can relate to that sometimes, yeah. What about you, Yeena?
I think one of the challenges, if you're in a lead role in an organisation, you know, and there's, I think having to learn to work in a Christian organisation like I did with Vinnie's, it was a whole new experience for me because I'd really only worked in NGOs or with, you know, with health. So actually getting them to take Aboriginal issues seriously, even though organisations, have reconciliation action plans, and there's a lot of lip service, but actually getting down to the nitty gritty with them and sitting on management level going, well, no, oh, you want a decision now? Sorry, I've got 40 people I've got to go and consult with, and I'll come back to you on that. And just saying, we've been here for 60,000 years. I ain't making a decision in 5 minutes. That was, and so doing that, actually getting systems and non-Aboriginal people to realise, like, oh, but you're supposed to be the leader. Why can't you make a decision right now?
I had a similar experience in government, and that's the other area where I found, that's probably where I found my most challenges, as been trying to, both of those reasons, someone taking it seriously around cultural issues and making sure that it was a culturally safe place to work, and also having the process of consultation and elders and getting people to understand that just wasn't something we talked about. It's something we actually do. And as women, we are the ones who actually do most of that within our societies and communities.
Just before we move on, there is another big challenge, which I think is constantly overlooked, and it's within health. We have a lot of Aboriginal health workers working across Australia, but I know a specific program that I worked with, and closing the gap. You can it'll close much better if you actually take us seriously. Like, you might have a clinical knowledge, but I have a cultural knowledge. And unless you give me the respect about my cultural knowledge and teach me your clinical stuff, because I'm teaching you my cultural stuff, then why should we make this program work for you? And, actually, Aboriginal, when there's non-Aboriginal people working in Aboriginal teams or whatever, those people should actually be trying to do themselves out of a job, because that's self-determination for us, and it's proper reconciliation, and it's proper, we know how to look after our mob. You teach us these clinical stuff that, we couldn't afford to go to uni, or it wasn't an opportunity for us. But but it doesn't mean we can't learn those skills.
I agree.
And like, obviously I have something very specific in my mind, but I really feel like, the day Aboriginal workers are transport workers and just door openers has got to stop, and blackfellas have got to start standing up for themselves. And I know it's hard, and I talked to a group of women who work in health, and I told them, I don't care how many houses and cars you got. If they are not doing the right thing by blackfellas, you've got to stand up. And if it means losing your job, then it means losing your job. Because my mother was getting her guts kicked in Everleigh Street, not yours. That's where I think people need to start doing a lot of historical stuff again, and let's talk about how we got to where we are.
Exactly.
And how we're not being faithful to that commitment that those fellas made so long ago for us.
And don't be afraid to be led by mob. Don't be afraid to be led by Aboriginal fellas. You're only going to benefit.
You just totally hit the nail on the head about why we're here today. So sharing that sort of stuff is really important. The other thing that I wanted to ask about in regards to that is around consultation. It's not I'm going to actually say it. It's not a question. And I made this comment yesterday, and it was about, and I guess we can go back many years through referendums and consultation on Uluru Statement of the Heart and all those sort of things, the same thing. The same people come to us every year, ask us the questions they need to consult, but they're back the next year with another pilot, or they're back the next year. So I've been in a few of these in forums and environments in the past few months, and made the comment of, we have said this so many times, to one of the people asking, and she acknowledged that. I said, we say the same thing every time.
But they don't listen.
And because it's not what you want to hear, you don't want to act on that. So it then creates tokenistic attitudes around the consultation process, which then devalues what we're doing. So,
because what happens is that we have these national priorities, right? And we don't localise them. So what the national priorities might not be relevant or needed in this Newcastle community. Newcastle blackfellas have the solutions of what
We're a
needs
different
to
mob,
it.
aren't we? Here?
Well,
we're different to a lot of places.
Well, we're transitional,
Yeah.
do you know? And there's many different people from many different nations that have now called Newcastle home.
And they're coming here for opportunities.
Absolutely.
For their kids, mostly.
Absolutely. They want to move away from their hometowns. Not that they're ever going to forget their hometown, because, you know, people go back to their hometowns. But they're here to have those opportunities for themselves, for their young people, you know. Like, and we've got to, if we're going to consult, let's consult properly and with everybody, because that's what we've got to do.
But you're absolutely right. You know, God, I don't even know, probably 20 years ago, I went to a consultation up in Moree at the high school. They were going to merge the high schools, you know, and make a junior and senior campus, all that stuff. And we, you know, there were people there, you know, given their input, and they had 3 models up and all that sort of stuff. And I'm sitting there and I'm going, they're just like, oh, yeah, you know, nodding their heads and going,
Not
yep.
relevant to
And
anything.
then I was just
yeah.
like, so just as a, like, just curious, which one does the government want? And they're like, oh, what do you mean? No, you guys are here with 3 models, but there's a preferred model by the government. I want to know what it is.
And did they disclose that?
They did.
Yeah,
and I said,
that's
well,
usually the
why
case.
are we going on with all this other crap? You're wasting my people's time here. Let's see what we can change about this model that you fellas are already going to do. Because they want to put chapels and all this, like,
Yeah.
what the hell?
That's a good outcome.
You know?
That's a great outcome. That's why you're sitting here today. And one last question. And I think this is just something that's a bit of a fun question. And remember that Rodney, I'm channeling Rodney here.
He wrote the questions.
Okay. If you could get in a time capsule
Oh, yeah.
and go back to be your younger self at the age you are most impressionable, what would you be and what would you say to yourself?
Oh,
What age would we be?
Yeah.
God.
And
I
like,
started mucking up when I was real young.
same. I don't. You know what though? I don't think I would go back and change anything, because I think you grow from your life experiences, right? And we can all have those reflective moments where we go, oh, if only I could just go back and stop this and have that sliding door moment where I go through that door instead of that door. But I think those going through your life is made you resilient and strong. I'm not going to say a survivor, because I think it's, you know, I've been reading this Chelsea Wadigo's book, and it just puts things, I so resonate with some of her words that she talks about. And it is about resilience, not survival.
I think we are the most resilient women in the world. And I think we don't always tell ourselves that. We take it for granted because we're just doers.
Yeah, very
What
true.
would you be if you could go back in time?
Look,
and
I agree with Toni. You know, even though it's extremely sad and heartbreaking, but if, you know, I would like to go back to talk to my mother about who she was and get her words. That would be amazing. But, you know, her passing and all that sort of stuff has really led me to who I am today. So I can't, you know, I can't say that I would be the same person, or I might have been, you know, maybe I would have been Prime Minister by now. Who knows, you know, if she would have been walking
A black female
walking beside me all that time. So,
a black
you know what
female
I mean?
prime
Like,
minister.
I knew
If
there was a
only.
reason I worked in government for such a long time. So we can make that happen.
Yeah, I don't feel like there's anything that I would change, apart from that, apart from sitting down with her and talking. But yeah, I think things that have happened for a reason. There's probably opportunities, like I could have studied more and all that stuff, but my brain, as soon as I say the word study, my brain went, bleh.
Yeah.
You know, like it's
Yeah.
just...
But you didn't have to study at any university. You went for the University of Life.
And I think
high five.
Yeah, I think all of us have actually done that. And
Yeah.
and it's a degree doesn't also mean that you're so knowledgeable, because some people with degrees I know have no common sense, you know, whereas I guess community is about who you are, what you do. And in our culture, we don't learn the academic way. We learn by doing, we learn by experiencing. And, you know, I've been very lucky to have beautiful and good role models in my life, and my mum and the beautiful Auntie Jackie Huggins, who have been very influential in my life and my daughter's lives. But I'm lucky enough to have deadly sisters like you and my friends, and there's people that have given me opportunities, and when I didn't think that I had the confidence to go and do things, it was usually a woman, I'll say, who pushed me. Angie Pearce was one of them. Like, there was a few people. Your cousin Kelly Drury was another one who said, you know, just have a go. And sometimes we just need to remind ourselves that we are a collective, and our business is our business as women, and we know how to approach that, I suppose, amongst ourselves. But
yeah,
we're
we've got to
very
be there
lucky.
to support each other.
Yeah, we do.
Right? It's hard enough being a black woman in this society without trying to damage each other. We've got to lift each other up.
Good words,
And I
wise
think-
words.
I think like what we learn, like anything that I learn, like with COVID or like with breast cancer, you know, I want to share and talk to my family members about it, because I don't want them, I want everyone to know what's going on. So like when I did some of my jobs, like I did that one that I have stuck in my brain, for me, empowering women to learn a new skill, and then they pass it on, and then they pass it on to their little families and their network, and I could see it happening in the community. I'm like, oh man, I made a difference here, you know. Well, that's the stuff that because as black people, we learn something and we teach it to our people.
We share it.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, thank you both for coming in today.
That's okay.
What you've shared is very insightful and very special, and I think we need to be really grateful in our community that we have such strong women role models and good leaders. And when I look around at the different things that we've all done in our life, we've got a pretty varied notebook. You're my friends, and I'm grateful and love you both, but you're also women who other people admire and look up to, particularly our young women, and just keep teaching them, keep showing them what you know, and that's all we can do. And yeah, thank you. I
Thanks,
appreciate you
Simone.
coming in.
Thanks for the opportunity.